something that happened last
We're
night.
never going to start. I hope you know that.
I'm getting used to this kind of rhythm now, so usually I just press record and I try to get a moment of silence so I can press start.
Oh, shit, you're actually recording right now?
Of course.
Ah,
The interview is already done, so...
Yeah. All right. We're going to have fun with this, ladies.
hell yeah.
Okay. Kevin and his Council of Ladies.
Mwaha.
That's pretty cool.
That is a really good title.
Oh my gosh, this takes me back to...
Dude, a different podcast, a therapy
takes me
show.
back to high school. This is not the first time I've been in this position of a council of ladies.
And no, but it's even better because we're all surrounding, staring at you.
We're going to tell you, Kevin, what the hell is wrong with you today. All right. Let's do this. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Ethan Siegel, and I took a left at the Valley, and I loved it.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you after the typical goat sacrifice, this is Left in the Valley. My name is Kevin, and I turned wine into vomit. Your move, Jesus. Joining me as usual is a team that will ask you to show us on the doll where Jesus touched you.
In my heart.
She believes we should pay our taxes with a smile. She tried, but they wanted cash. Nancy.
I know. Oh, well.
You can keep trying, Nancy.
Yeah, I keep trying.
No rebuttal this week.
Well, they say people, certain people have $1 million smile, and I thought I'd try
Oh, there we
it.
go. There we go. Love it. And she thinks the world needs more humble Jesuses. There are so few of us left.
I know. I am one of the last.
And she says a good man can make you feel strong, sexy, and confident. No, sorry, that was wine. Wine does that. Kirsten.
That is
Wine
so true.
and a good woman.
There we go.
Yes.
Ladies, welcome back.
We're still searching for that.
We're going to have a great show today. We're going to be talking to Michael Moore, and we're going to be talking about children and autism. So that will be very interesting. But first, let's do a bit of chit-chat. Well, it has happened. The royal wedding. Do you care?
Nope.
All right.
I missed it completely.
I literally on Facebook this morning, the royal wedding already happened. Okay.
I saw
on.
an interesting video about why they all wear the fancy hats.
Oh, that's the best part.
I love the hats.
Yeah, that's the
the
best
hats.
part is the hats.
I love the
hats?
hats.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you mean the women? Why they wear the
women
hats?
All
wear
the like
Okay.
big elaborate
Enlighten me.
It's like the Kentucky Derby hats.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
They're
It's just
cute.
a way like
It
people
just
get
kind of
dressed up for a
became
boxing
like
match.
tradition, and like that's
Whoever can wear
what's done.
They should have like a secret door prize for like whoever wears the craziest hats, and the queen gets to decide.
It's like having wedding and birthday cakes on your head. They're just fabulous, and you wonder who made them, or where did they get them?
I would
It's
commission
wonderful.
an engineering student to make my hat.
Yes. I learned an interesting little tidbit about the queen, and it's just, I know she's always wearing hats, and this is what made me think of it. Apparently, she has a matching umbrella for every single outfit.
I love her so much.
And a matching corgi too, right?
A corgi.
Yes.
Corgi,
And a matching
corgi,
purse.
whatever. Matching dog.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
She's rich enough.
All right. Well, apparently that wedding is going to cost about $45 million. It's obscene. Yeah. All right.
Well, as long as we don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. North Korea decided to back out of the talks with South Korea.
Surprise.
I am
Surprise.
so surprised.
But you know what? They say they wanted the U.S. to disarm and to remove their weapons in
Like
South
that's
Korea.
gonna happen?
That's not. Well, yeah, but that's not unreasonable for them to ask that.
No.
So it's like, okay, people say, of course, North Korea decided to back out, but yeah, I don't know. I almost want to give the guy the benefit of a doubt here.
That's a relatively reasonable request.
I think it's a reasonable request.
Well, there's a pattern here. How many years have the U.S. and South Korea been having these games
Yeah.
in that area. How many? So how long ago do you think the North Koreans said, we could go right up to the brink because we know that the exercises, and it's going to be the perfect excuse. They all put smiles on their face, and they're all waiting to use that as, well, no, we can't do it. It's like, okay.
We'll see what happens.
Who in this room is surprised? Nobody.
We'll see what happens. And, of course, another week, another shooting in the States. This one happened in Santa Fe, Texas. I'm going to be a bit of an ass here. I'm sorry for the audience. I'd like to thank all these children that lay down their lives every week so the American citizen can keep on carrying their guns.
Yeah. Do you want to know what was so ridiculous? There was someone talking about how the school shootings would happen less if there was less doors.
I know.
It's like you are regulating doors before guns. Are you
This is how
actually
ridiculous this country has become.
kidding me?
Well, they have to think of everything so that guns are pushed to the side. They just, that's the way the NRA thinks.
Yeah, this is in the Santa Fe High School in Texas. 10 killed, 8 students and 2 teachers, and 10 more were wounded. The suspect used a .38 caliber revolver and a shotgun. His name is Dimitrios Pagurtsi. He's 17. He has a criminal history. And he even wrote in his journal that he planned to do the shooting and then commit suicide. But he didn't do that, and they caught him.
And I heard that he dressed very strangely with long trench coats that had Nazi insignia and things like that on it. But I haven't heard enough to know whether or not they thought he was really weird. Obviously, no one reported him, so it's tragic because it's another young person with an obvious mental problem that wasn't stopped or wasn't, the parents thought, oh, well, he'll grow out of it, whatever it is. It's sad. It's just really and tragic.
And, of course, this is a new reality for the students in the States, and it's a really sad one. I'd like to point out that, there have been more civilian death by gun in the U.S. than all the U.S. wars ever since their inception.
That is insane.
That is absolutely insane, okay? CNN, for example, there was a poll done by CNN, says that there is an estimated 310 million guns in the U.S., and that was in 2009.
Wow.
India comes in at second place with 46 million, from 310 to 46 million. And the population of India is way larger than the States.
Just slightly.
Yeah. Worldwide, this is still 2009, there was an estimated 650 million guns for civilians. Worldwide, almost half of those in the U.S.
And let's see, there have been...
Wow.
I think I heard one of the reporters say that this is the 16th school shooting this year.
Is it 16th?
And so how many times... That makes 16 times that the same conversation has been over and
This
over.
year.
This year. 16 times with... and there has been some progress in some of the states because the feds won't do anything because they're bought off by the NRA. But some states have actually banned the bump stocks and made a few little movements, but overall everybody says, well, maybe this is the time it's going to change.
Well, how many shootings is it going to take for them to go, maybe these little tiny steps and doing nothing is going to have that effect and do nothing?
Exactly.
Unless there really is a groundswell, like there was with the Parkland students, I'm
putting my money on that.
Yeah, because that's going to have to be the way it is.
When it was Sandy Hook, that was an elementary school.
Yeah.
Elementary school students don't have much of a voice. High school students do get involved, and they're very close to voting age and all that, so they do get, participate in the political process. And of course, it's disgusting to see how the right attacks these kids right away and calls them fake actors and stuff like that. It's just absolutely amazing. So what? You really need your gun that badly? Anyway.
I think in the States it might not change until these kids who have grown up in this environment where every day they go to school, they're like, am I going to die today?
Yeah.
Like, I think when those kids, a large enough proportion of them become voting age, because there are more population-wise people that age.
Yes.
than baby boomers.
Yeah.
So when they're able to vote, I think that might be when they flip and then all the other political stuff going on right now. Who knows what the political landscape in the States is going to look like in 10 years.
We should also
One
do
of
a
the
show.
reporters was interviewing, I don't know what year she was in, maybe sophomore, junior, whatever. And the reporter said, well, were you surprised?
No.
And that's what she said. She said, no. She said, I knew it was just a matter of time before it happened here, and I was just scared. And when you think that this is the face now of the typical high school student, that they're not surprised because they see that's what's happening, and they go to school every day thinking, is this the day it's going to happen here?
I just wouldn't go to school.
I mean, it's horrible.
I'm like, and homeschooling.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Nancy, you remember, was it last year they had this really huge controversy? Was it a white and gold dress, or was it a blue and black?
Okay, can we just not talk about this, please?
Here we go again.
Literally everywhere is so... No, everyone knows technically, originally, the original audio was Laurel. And then it's depending on what stereo it's coming out of, it can be warped to sound like Yanni.
No, it's not the stereo. Apparently it depends on your age as well.
No, but there
if
are...
you're younger, you'll hear Yanni.
No, but the thing is, I've heard it both. Depending on what I'm listening to. In my car, I hear Yanni. In my headphones, I hear Laurel.
You're kidding me.
No,
Okay, so
it totally depends on the stereo.
I've got the recording right here. So you guys tell me what you hear.
Okay.
Because I predict all three of us are going to hear Yanni, and she's going to hear Laurel. Or Nancy's probably going to hear something like Pharaoh or something like that.
And aside.
Laurel,
I hear Laurel.
Laurel,
I hear Laurel.
Laurel,
I hear Laurel.
Laurel,
Well, it's not even the Yammy. It's more like a Yammy, but...
Laurel.
Not amazing. I hear Yanni
But,
too.
but when I listened to it on my tablet, I heard Yanni, so it was totally
Yeah, it's
different. And I
totally-
didn't hear Laurel until
Here,
I moved it
I'm
way over.
1 second. I'm going to switch headphones and see if I hear it different.
An interesting thing, though, is when I'm listening to it, if I focus on it, it's
Okay,
as
play it
weird
again.
as it sounds, I can hear the Laurel in there as well. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm hearing Laurel too.
Let's...
Laurel,
No, I still hear Laurel.
Laurel, Laurel,
Yeah, no, but in my car, I'll hear in my car headphones. I'll hear totally different things. Oops, there we go.
So are we all weird and strange, or are we all normal?
No, it's just normal. It's an audio
One of
illusion.
these things I heard is apparently they say if your ears are of the younger variety, you're younger in age
No.
and stuff like, you'll hear Yanni.
No.
But this is weird because you're way younger than I.
It's totally what the audio is coming out of.
Well, and the interesting thing is I've got the headphones on with my hearing aids at the same time, and we all heard the same thing. So even with the additional electronic enhancement, interference, or whatever, we still heard the same.
And apparently the original recording is actually Laurel.
Yeah.
Apparently the word is Laurel. But because of the way it's distributed or whatever.
Yeah. So experiment, guys. Listen to it on different mediums.
Yeah, I guess we'll have
Listen
to
to it
try
on your
that.
computers. Try it on your tablet. Like, see what it sounds like in different things.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. Like, if I were just somewhere and I were to just hear it, like, on something, I would probably hear Yanni. But when I actually look at it, I can see how it's actually Laurel.
Yeah. But I've totally heard both.
Oh, yeah, I can hear them both as well.
Okay, well, we won't resolve this today, apparently.
Nope.
My dear Nancy.
It's never going to be
Yes.
resolved.
You got
The
a
dress was black and blue.
No, see, I saw it white and gold.
So did I. I saw both as well.
You got a top 10 for us?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, everybody who's listening, I want you to remember this site. If you can't write it down, come back after you've listened to our entire podcast and get it again, and then go to the site. It's called atlasobscura.com.
Oh, this is the best website.
AtlasObscura.com.
Atlas Obscura. This is
I'm
a
writing this down.
website that started in about 2007, and one of the people who started it was a documentarian, and the other one was a writer. And what they wanted to do was have almost like an interactive type of a map where you could track odd and unusual things all over the world, out of the way places where people had heard about but never gone, and people could send in their experiences of where they had been. on the map. And so now you've got these maps, and if you came to Vancouver and wanted to know, well, where are all the architectural atrocities? Where are all the beautiful gardens? Whatever it is that you want to find or look for, it's been mapped, and you can go on and edit it. You can go on and put your own impressions on it.
I think I like that site already.
It's amazing.
Oh, it's wonderful, and I just discovered it. So, Christina, you're far ahead of me.
I haven't been on it in a while, but I have definitely been on it.
I mean, if I were to do the top 10 on that website, I'd have years of top 10 different things to do.
Because it's just all crazy stuff.
It's crazy stuff.
I love crazy stuff.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's like National Geographic, and then there used to be another website called Waymarker where people left pictures and things, and other people would find them. I think that's long gone, but it's an interesting site. And the way I found it was because I saw the headline that said, "The obsessively detailed map of American literature's most epic road trips." I thought, we're
That's
coming
awesome.
up on road trips.
Epic road trips.
On road trips. And what they did was they looked for, the two writers that did this particular one, they looked for novels that were really detailed in the different places in the United States, either because they were road trip novels or the road trip was a side effect of the main story. But they put all of these maps together in detail so that if anyone wanted to follow where the authors of these books had been or where they placed it, you can go. And you can do it as these places were in 1916, or you can do it and see what's changed. So these are the books that inspired the road trips, and maybe they're books that you've already read, or maybe they're books that you'd pick up and say, wow, I think I'll follow the destinations in the book and see how everything has changed. So the first book is called Wild, and the author is Cheryl Strayed. I don't know that book. It's from 2012. And the book is about a series of personal crises, and the author then hits the Pacific Crest Trail and walks from Southern California to Portland, and what she learns during that trip.
That's a bit of a hike.
Anybody ever hear of that one?
Well, I know the Pacific Trail, but that's a bit of a hike.
Yeah,
oh,
Cheryl Strayed, Strayed, Ryed. There we go. Then moving way back in history, The Cruise of the Rolling Junk by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And that was in 1934, and Scott and Zelda's wacky adventures along the muddy, unkept roads of the mid-Atlantic and South as they drive from Connecticut to her hometown of Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so there's got to be a lot of small towns, a lot of interesting things.
There's something interesting about doing the road trips in that era, because a lot of the roads weren't paved. They were like dirt roads and stuff like that. And with the weather, like when you listen to these first pioneers that rode across the country on motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
They were like, knee deep in mud trying to push a bike. It's like, my God, what a...
Yeah, the distance between
we have it
places
easy
to get
today.
gas and thing and food, it was. This one is a real good one. Rolling Nowhere, Riding the Rails with America's Hobos. And that's from 1984. And the author is Ten Conover, and he is a method journalist, and he doesn't have a lot of sentimentality about what he's writing, and so he writes about a subculture of the transients, and it's been mourned and romanticized, about the hobos, but this is the hobos and what they were like and where they went. And have you ever been attracted to books about hobos? And
not really, but I've actually had a chance to spend time and talk with someone who had spent most of their life riding the rails. He was interesting.
For a second there, I thought you were going to ask if you've ever been attracted to hobos.
Yeah, well, that's true.
For a second there, I thought you were
this is a book that I've read, and it was written in 1979, but I think I read it about 5 to 6 years ago, called A Walk Across America, and the author is Peter Jenkins, not the Peter Jenkins who was on ABC, but this Peter Jenkins, had a dog, Cooper, and they go to New Orleans from upstate New York. And along the way, they encounter poverty and racism and hippies and illness and all that kind of stuff. And then there's a death, but I won't tell you with who. You read the book. And then they end up in Mobile, Alabama. And that's a really, really interesting book. Again, small town and the people that he meets. Next one, Cross Country, 15 years and 90,000 miles on the roads and interstates of America with Lewis and Clark. And the author is Robert Sullivan, 2006, and so he follows, I mean, the title is self-evident, he follows Lewis and Clark and where they went, and it's kind of a straight shot across the continent. Even though there's interstates and chain motels, at this point it's an interesting book. In 1989, a book called The Lost Continent by Bill Bryson, and that's an account of a guy who returns from abroad and his reacquaintance with the U.S., and he seems to be reminded on every page why he left it, and then why we let him back in. This is another one that I read and really enjoyed. I think I read this one about 4 or 5 years ago, called Blue Highways: A Journey into America by William Least Heat Moon. It's his entire name. He was kind of critical he read books that were kind of critical about small town life in America, but this guy took his van on the road for 3 months, and he separated from his wife and stuck only to the smaller height. When you look at the map and you sort of the major ones are the red roads, well, he took the blue ones to see what was off the interstates.
So it's like Google Maps when you put to stay off of a highway or freeways.
Yeah, he really goes to a lot of different quirky places, and of all of these so far, I think if you really wanted to follow anybody, William Moon, I think would be he'd be the one that I would follow. Then here's a famous one, On the Road by Jack Kerouac, back in 1957. That's a classic. Did anybody ever read that?
No,
that one? Yeah, that's
I'm more
about
like
the hippies
fantasy.
and the new generation, and the James Dean.
There's no Harry Potter in that. She's not going to read
Harry Potter. Yeah, that's a good one. This is one that I've read, and it's one of the first ones in 1872 by Mark Twain, called Roughing It. It's just a wonderful book. You wonder how in the world they ever survived with the stagecoaches and all the rough and tumble kinds of things with the silver mines that were going on and the different characters. It's beautifully written, and you really get a sense from him, because he's such a great writer. You almost feel worn out from riding in the stagecoach after you've read a couple of pages. But it's just great. I really recommend that book because of the time and the place and because of the author. So if you really want to do that one, it's well worth the read. Here's another one that maybe you know, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. That's a classic.
I've seen that book.
Yeah, that's Robert Pirsig, Pirsig, 1974. And he and his son go to California, and it's a very profound philosophical kind of book, very 1970s. And that was on the best books to read in terms of time and place for a long time. Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. Beautiful book. That was in 1962, and he took his black poodle and in a customized van named after Don Quixote's horse, and he just went out into the territories, and he and the dog are wonderful companions, and it's John Steinbeck. You ever read any John Steinbeck?
I don't think I have. I've heard of his work, but I don't think I've read his.
He did a lot, around the Monterey, California area. Beautiful writer. That's one. That's a must read. Anything of Steinbeck is a must read, but that one is but he was a little bit older, and it's a good book. And the last one The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by an author who just died this past week, Tom Wolfe.
Oh.
And that book sounds like it was written in like the 70s.
Yeah. In 1968,
close.
Ken Kesey and the highly acidic Merry Pranksters took a bus across the country to explain about taking acid and about the new life of psychedelic and meanderings here and there in the philosophy, and they really wanted to shake people up to let them know that a new era had arrived and they needed to either get with it or they wouldn't be cool. Mm-hmm. And I just heard a piece on CBC about Thomas. It was funny, it was on the list, and they did an interview with one of the men who was one of the original Merry Pranksters. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get an idea of why Tom Wolfe was revered and will be revered for a long time, the title is The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, 1968. Go get it and read it.
Just the name makes it curious.
Yeah.
I know. As soon as I heard it, I'm like...
Sounds like a Beatles album.
Something you read on the Soul Train.
By the way, Tom Wolfe got in the habit early on of wearing white suits, and it was just his thing. And there he was on the bus with all these merry pranksters in his white suit.
Oh, man. He must have been a target for anything that's stains.
Yeah, but they all took him in, and they all admired him, and they knew he was special during that time. So
cool.
Read that one, for sure.
Great list. Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that.
Can I just jump in here for a sec? It's insane how many more road trips you can do in the States than in Canada. In Canada, it's just kind of just a straight shot across the bottom of the country.
Well, yeah, that's because the rest of anything above north of us is essentially wild land.
Well, I did look on Atlas Obscura to see, what they had about Canada, and they really got an awful lot of really quirky things. I think like one of the hotels near Vancouver is the left foot in the shoe, the left shoe in a boot motel.
It's not named after all these shoe incidents. Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they take you to places that you might go straight across, but if you take what they call the blue highways and the off pathways, you find.
Yeah.
For the audience that might not know what we're talking about, there's been kind of an ongoing mystery that's been going on in the region, the Vancouver region, for a couple of years now, where shoes and human feet are washing up ashore in a shoe. It's obviously somebody, that fell overboard, drowned, and, decomposition, and the shoe kind of floats. Mm-hmm. So it kind of breaks at the ankle there. The bone kind of breaks at the ankle, and it floats and eventually makes its way to shore. And then you have the mystery of you have a human foot. And they named the hotel after this.
There's a motel in there.
There's been like a dozen of these shoes found there?
I'm telling you, if you get on Atlas Obscura, you're not coming out of there.
Oh, I'm going to have to go check that site.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah, we'd have to pull you out with tools, I think, to get you out of there.
That's awesome. Oh, perfect. My dear Kirsten, you ready to regale us with another brilliant moment?
I think I am. It'll be a short segment this week.
That's okay.
Rick Wiles. They're building a global brain that will embody Lucifer's mind.
Oh, goodness. Hold on. We're building a global brain? Oh, sure. Okay. Go.
She'll explain.
Global brain.
You thought that was bad.
Yeah.
It gets better.
Alarmed by reports that a computer program has learned to play Texas Hold'em so efficiently that it can now defeat professional poker players, radio host Rick Wiles warned on his True News radio broadcast that it is now only a matter of time before Satan takes over the world using a global brain.
Satan is Skynet.
Yeah.
I knew it!
Yep.
Because Texas Hold'em involves bluffing.
Schwarzenegger is the Antichrist. I knew it.
So he's convinced that computers are now learning how to lie. And since Satan is the father of all lies, it stands to reason that we will soon have a demon-possessed, artificially intelligent robots controlling the world.
See, this is what's going to happen. The computer's going to look at this and say, this human is too stupid. We need to eliminate humans like him. And that's how Armageddon starts. Thank you, Rick Wiles.
If you have a machine that is capable of lying, then it has to be connected to Lucifer, he said. Now we're back into the global brain. This is where they're going. They're building a global brain that will embody Lucifer's mind, and so Lucifer will be deceiving people through the global brain.
When science and theology
Oh,
collide.
yes. Plug into Lucifer. I'm just trying to figure out Lucifer's got something plug up his ass.
Lucifer, it's going to be like Siri, and you like pull your phone. Lucifer, what's the weather like outside? Raining hellfire.
I would get so much enjoyment out of that.
We've got to help build this thing.
To make matters worse, Wiles warned demon-possessed robots will soon start replacing human workers, resulting in massive unemployment, which is why the deep state is planning to start a global war for the purpose of killing off all those people who are no longer needed. I'm going to tell you where I think this is going, he said. I think the deep state planners have already figured this out, and they have scheduled a massive war to eliminate tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of useless eaters. I really believe that.
Useless ears. This is where it's going. It's going to the loony bin right now. That's where it's going.
Oh my gosh.
Now, you know what? If you're a demon, let's face it, why would you possess a soft, squishy human when you can possess a nice metal robot? Come on.
Or like a cockroach.
Yeah, I mean,
Thing's never gonna die.
if you're a demon,
right to me.
Shoot, it's your prerogative who you possess as a demon, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And who says you have to possess a freaking human? They're kind of squishy,
So
they're
now-
easy to kill.
Yeah, and now it's not like either Satan's taking over or technology's taking over. Both is good.
That's right. Now you can possess a robot. That's awesome.
A future we
Oh
can
my
really
gosh.
look forward
Dude.
to. I love it.
That's why Alexa laughs.
That's why Alexa laughs. Alexa's the devil.
Yeah.
And if you rearrange the letters Alexa, you get nothing.
No.
But
But there's a deep meaning behind that nothing. It's
very
not a
deep
nothing,
meaning.
nothing.
Yes.
It's a something, nothing.
there's absolutely.
To fear.
Have you guys heard Alexa's laugh?
No, I have not.
She literally will just randomly be like, ha, ha, ha. Like, no prompting.
I think I've heard it
What's
too,
up?
and it's just really weird
It's
and out
creepy.
there.
You just have to lower the frequency since it's going to be Lucifer.
Exactly.
Oh, I see a graphic novel in the works and an animated
That would be
cartoon.
so funny. Like a book where Lucifer is like stuck in technology but can't really do anything.
Lucifer's stuck in a toaster.
Except like be like communicate like Siri.
He's avoiding computer viruses like hell. It's like, oh my god.
Lucifer's stuck in a cell phone.
Oh, that would
With a cracked screen.
gosh, I want this TV show now.
Hey, thank you, Rick Wiles. You're giving us
I
great
just-
ideas for TV
It's
shows.
stuck in, and it's that blue thing is just spinning.
It's thinking.
He's sneaking onto Pornhub like and making the brow like the loading sign on those videos like on all the Christians watching porn.
Alexa or Siri, give me the nearest church.
Well, now we're gonna have
Searching
Lucy.
for Pornhub.
Now we're gonna have Lucy.
No, who's Lucy?
Lucifer.
Lucifer, of course. Thank you.
That's gonna be the AI's name, Lucy.
They'll never
Oh
know.
my god.
Lucy, find me the nearest Baptist church. Searching for a strip club.
Oh my
brilliant.
gosh, I want this.
Oh, you know what? If Satan should totally go into that. The future is telecommunication for sure, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's it?
That's the only one.
That's
I've
the only one this
today.
week? Oh, yeah, that's
It's
okay.
been a long week, guys.
It's been a long
Yeah.
week. That's fine. Thank you so much, Kirsten. I appreciate that. That was great.
You were very welcome.
A little dose of laughter every week. We can appreciate that. All right. Thank you, ladies. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have Michael Moore, and we'll have our interview with him about children and autism. So stay with us.
Here's an excerpt from Powerless No Longer by Peter W. Soderman.
One night,
In late August 1990, I was sitting in my living room continuing a normal evening of drinking after the mosquitoes drove me inside. I was making up stories in my head about adventures that would never happen when my 15-year-old daughter appeared out of nowhere. She stood 10 feet in front of me, fiddling with a piece of paper in her hand. "Dad," she said with a tremor in her voice, "what did you think of the poem I read for you on the deck? You said you wanted to think about it for a while." "What poem?" I couldn't remember even seeing her earlier, let alone any poem. Thrusting the paper towards me, she said, "This poem, Dad. I've been working on it for days." I looked towards the floor and muttered something, hoping it was appropriate. I can't remember what I said. When our eyes met, I watched her expression change from hurt to anger, then from anger to disgust. I saw myself reflected in her eyes as we both realized at the same instant that I was a complete fraud. She crumpled the paper into a ball and tossed it onto the rug. Her hair swirled as she spun on her heel and ran from the room. I forgot the poem, but I still remember her sobs. I looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time and realized this was coming to an end, and damn soon. We were living off sales from 2 years ago, and the pipeline was empty. I was a liar, a cheat, and a phony, and one of the few around me who didn't realize it. If the world would stop, I thought, I could get myself together and begin to make things right. I tried hard not to drink anymore that evening, but the glass magically continued to fill itself. When the pendulum clock on the wall bonged 1 a.m., I stumbled up the stairs, undressed, and fell into bed. As the room began to spin, I felt absolute panic. I knew I couldn't face life without alcohol to kill the pain. Yet, I knew I would die if I continued to drink.
Powerless No Longer, Reprogramming Your Addictive Behavior by Peter W. Soderman is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
In a world torn apart by a lack of reason, or lease, and I think it should be religion treated with ridicule and hatred and contempt, and I claim that right.
In the morning. Hi, everybody. This is Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast, and if you subscribe now, you'll get free.
Learn more about the broadcast at therighttoreason.com.
It was this point of mystery, and in gets invoked God. This, over time, has been described by philosophers as the God of the gaps. If that's where you're going to put your God in this world, then God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific ignorance.
When you're gone for days on your own.
All right, our next guest has a master's in occupational therapy out of the East Michigan University. He's a snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer. Michael Moore, thank you so much for joining us at Left of the Valley.
I'm glad to be here, and I am a snappy dresser and a fancy dancer.
I know, finally I got one.
We've really been looking forward to your coming, so it's going to be a great discussion.
Yeah, you've been getting a bit of a following down south in the States. You might not be as well known up here in north of the 49. Maybe you'll give us a quick bio as to who Michael Moore is. First of all, you're not that filmmaker, right?
I'm not the filmmaker guy, so if you've tuned in expecting that, I'm sorry to disappoint you. So no. Anyways, I started off making a living as a musician, but realized that I really enjoy helping people and I love teaching. And when I was in my 20s and I was performing, I was kind of bemoaning the music business when the internet was starting to destroy everybody's lives. And someone said, you'd be a good occupational therapist. And I said, what's that? And so I researched it. I applied to Eastern, and I had a bachelor's in music, but I also had a minor's in psychology and a minor's in science and a bunch of other credits. And so Eastern took me, and I finished up in 2000, and I took a few years off to take care of my father, who just had a series of health issues. And he passed away, and then I finally started to work in the field, and a few years went by, and I fell into a job working for Detroit Public Schools, working with children, mainly children with disabilities, focusing on autism and ADHD and some bipolar, Tourette's, and other related disorders. As well as cognitive impairments, and of course, what we just got through talking before we started recording is lead poisoning as well. And so that's been about 13 some years doing that. So
how does a musician begin decide all of a sudden to become to study autism? It seems like the farthest thing you would expect from a musician.
Well, I was a classical guitarist, and classical guitarists are overwhelmingly concerned with technique and order of operation and the ergonomics of the body, because it's such a high demand, high art form. And I certainly didn't have the talent to be, a world-class classical guitarist, but I loved studying. I still love playing. I still play all the time. And so I was good at teaching the technique of classical guitar, and I still teach as well. And a friend of mine who was also an artist and a physical therapist said, well, you'd be a good occupational therapist. And so that's what kind of got me into it. I thought maybe I'd become a hand therapist or even a hand surgeon. But when I fell into the Detroit job working with those children, I got kind of hooked on the phenomena of autism and the sort of the mystery of it. And also just having an interest in philosophy, having an interest in how the mind works and how the brain works and how the components of the brain interact. I found it just amazing to work with these children.
It is. They pull you in immediately, and then you want to solve everything and bring them back tomorrow. But yes. you've got a long road to go.
My philosophy became at some point that they're extensions. It's a continuum. And so I realized that, we're all on this continuum. We all have these components in our brains and in our personalities that sometimes those components don't work efficiently as other components do, or sometimes they fail or they fall apart. And autism is just this sort of drastic expression of some of those components that, affecting personality. And so I don't know. I kind of I just saw them as just a few degrees off normal, and thought, we can go at this the wrong way. We really should be trying to make them more comfortable and trying to understand how they're perceiving the world sensory wise. So that was my feeling about all of that. It's I don't know. Any questions about that?
It's a challenge, but every step forward that you make with that child brings him a little bit closer to being able to negotiate the world in a better way, and it also helps to relieve the caregivers of doing something for that child, and that child can now perhaps master some kind of a self-help skill or a language word or use words correctly, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of that process. You don't know how far that child is going to go, but you know that you've made some progress, and it's such a wonderful partnership to do that with a child that needs your help.
Okay, I got to jump in here because I feel I'm talking to two really smart people, and I'm the dumbass here eating paste in the corner. And I thought, since there could be some people in the audience that are just dumb as me, maybe we should start with, because everybody hears autism, but I'm not sure people clearly know what it is. Maybe you two would be so kind to explain to my dumbass what autism is. Maybe give us maybe a brief history lesson here.
It's a communication deficit, basically. And it's also sort of an emotional communication deficit to a degree.
An emotional communication deficit?
I'm sorry?
An emotional communication deficit?
Well, it's a communication deficit, but it's also an emotional communication deficit as well. When you know one person with autism, you basically only know one person with autism. Sometimes people with autism appear very verbal, but they'll use language very literally. I forget what's his name, the character on The Big Bang Theory.
Sheldon.
Yeah, he's obviously Asperger's. He's obviously someone like that. He uses language very literally, very matter-of-factly. He's on the continuum. The writers don't come right out and say that. They don't even tell the actor that, but that's how they're writing him, and that's how he's being perceived. But then sometimes children with autism, they have a hard time just developing or acquiring language. They'll be very nonverbal. And so they could have sensory deficits as well. And so they're not, when they hear people talk, they're not actually processing language at all, what they think what you're perceiving as language is being heard. So they're not acquiring it in that fashion. So sometimes sign language is taught to them. Sometimes teaching language through other types of reinforcement, other types of behavioral therapy, then language is reinforced. And sometimes the children will acquire some type of speaking facility, but it just depends on the innate abilities in that particular child.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes therapy is there to facilitate just different types of communication between the parents or caregivers and the children, and helping them understand how to make the child more functional in their home environment and less set off sensory wise. So sometimes going into the home and saying, okay, these types of materials the child has an aversion to, so the child isn't sleeping, so that's exacerbating all these other types of behaviors. Or children with autism have very sensitive gastrointestinal tracts, and so their diets really have to be considered and thought of. And if you can look up books on the internet, and there's tons and tons of books of the theories and different practices of diets for children with autism, and most are actually quite good. I only found a few that I thought were kind of wacky or bogus, but most of them were on the right road, basically. Looking out for tons of artificial flavoring and artificial color, those are the things to really be aware of.
Yeah, and a lot of times these children are also hypersensitive to noise, and they get distracted very easily. Yeah. And a lot of times, if you've been working with children like that, sometimes they do better with headphones, even headphones that have white noise. Each child, and I'm deferring to you, Michael, and just jumping in and accessorizing a little bit. But so many times you have to take each child individually and do a lesson plan, and if you have, and it's very difficult to work, at least it was with me, Michael, it was very difficult to work with more than one child at a time, and it's always been a one-on-one. Do you find that as well?
I only ever did one-on-one. No one ever complained about my productivity, thank God.
No, they can't. So you don't like what I'm doing? You sit here for a day and a half and see.
I'm getting the impression that when you use the label autism, it seems to encompass such a vast array of quote-unquote conditions.
That brings up another point. The gang and the DSM, every few years or so, redefine autism, and they redo the umbrella characteristics that will go into it. So there's a lot of childhood developmental diseases and syndromes that have been basically thrown away, and now autism basically encompasses what used to be like a pervasive developmental delay or pervasive, oh my God, I forget what it's called, destruction syndrome. There's a few fairly failure to thrive. Some children that were diagnosed with failure to thrive now are being diagnosed with autism. So it's, and I actually think that's problematic, and I think the next incarnation of the DSM, they'll be redefining those features as well, and they'll have a whole new criteria for. So, I expect that will be the case.
So how much different is our understanding of autism today as compared to 20, 30 years ago?
You want me to take the 20, 30 years ago, and then you can
sure,
and then you can get into the advanced civilization.
I'll ask you the retro question, Nancy, and then I'll ask Michael.
I lived through the period from the late 60s to almost 1980, and the period where I was a speech pathologist working in the public schools. It was evolving and working with, it was called infantile autism at that point. And there really wasn't a spectrum. There was just a group of behaviors that were all severe. They were all emotional and speech related, with the occasional child who did ritualistic movements to help himself stay focused or oriented or satisfied within himself. So there wasn't a spectrum. There was only the autistic child, who at that point still had a little a tinge of "it's your mother's fault" attached to the child. So when a speech pathologist would work with that child, we would try to get the parents to do what Michael was talking about, to help that child, to enhance, to explain, and to do what they could. And it was very difficult. You got the occasional parents that really worked well with the child, but a lot of times parents were so riddled with guilt that it was their fault, and they were behaviors that were so destructive that the parents were so distraught that it was really difficult to get them to focus. And building on that, Michael came in at a time, I think, that this began to be a little bit better in terms of both therapy and working with parents.
So once they realized past the 70s that autism wasn't caused by disco music, then they decided to start doing some more research, and this is where Michael comes in.
It's not where I come in. It's where a lot of researchers and doctors before me came in. But it's an X chromosome disorder, which is why you see it being mostly the vast majority of the children with autism being boys. A female has an X chromosome, which kind of protects them from the genetic damage that causes the features of autism, but not just autism, but ADHD and bipolar disorder and Tourette's and OCD and other right hemisphere disorders. So that's where it is now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the double X chromosome essentially offers protection on a genetic level for women, or do they have maybe a reduced version on the spectrum?
That's a good question. Do we see? I mean, those numbers I cannot comment on. Okay. That would be speculation, but that would be interesting to see. Is like, do we see more severe extreme cases in males than we do females? Although in my personal experience, my anecdotal evidence, I've had some very extreme cases of females, as I have with males. But a vast majority of my clientele in the schools with autism have been male.
Wow.
Yeah, but quite a few females though as well. But yes, now what causes it? Well, it's genetic. It's this damage. So the various things in our environment that cause that type of damage. Oddly enough, we are seeing higher numbers of autism in industrialized places that utilize a high degree of oil and petroleum refineries. Yeah, so we're poisoning ourselves to death, as you would expect.
Yeah.
It's toluene, T-U-L-E-N-E. It's a byproduct of the manufacture and refining of gasoline. Mm-hmm. It does a lot of damage to our X chromosome, and that's a culprit that is suspected of being one of many. But that's one of the culprits as why we're seeing some of those numbers in some of those industrialized areas of the high degree of autism as well. So
no, come on, Michael. I gotta play devil's advocate half a second here.
Come
on. You've heard the rumor. You know full well it's caused by vaccines, right? We know full well by now. There was this study by this quack. What was his name?
I'd drawn a blank.
I forget that guy's name. He did a study. He had like 12 patients.
Wakefield.
Sorry?
Andrew Wakefield.
Wakefield, thank you.
Yeah, Wakefield, yes.
So care to comment on that irrefutable evidence?
The 1998 Lancet article that's been retracted, and all the contributors have basically pulled their support of it and have apologized. And so basically that article, you know how large his sample size was for that article?
Yeah, it was something ridiculous, like 12 people or something like that.
It was 12 people. It was 12 kids.
Yeah.
And specifically, the 12 kids, he knew they were part of a lawsuit. They were looking to sue the pharmaceutical company. So he took that on. Oh. So I mean, it was a research protocol from hell, basically.
Yes, it didn't seem very honest. Let's just say that.
No, right when you pull it apart and all of its how it was pieced together, it's just like how it ever got published in the first place was just incredible. It really is sad.
So Wakefield comes onto the public place with this questionable study, and people just lose their shit.
Well, getting back to what was being stated earlier, you have parents feeling a huge amount of guilt that they did something wrong, and then here's this doctor giving them a boogeyman,
yes,
and in giving them an out, and so it's a very clear case. It's like a Murder, She Wrote episode, and so you can see why it would take off and spread so virulently through the population as it did, and as it has. Basically, I have friends. I have educated friends that I sit with and have a beer over and with their newborn baby, and they're like, they're not going to vaccinate their child, and I'm like, why not? And it's like, because of those evil pharmaceutical companies, and I'm just like, okay, let's go through this again, and I explained to them and everything, but through dealing with them, I've worked on trying to be a better communicator. For the parents that I work with and the general environment on this topic,
Michael, let's take a second here. And you said you go and you explain to your friends. Let's pretend, for example, I'm your friend, and we just had a beer, and I said, I'm not vaccinating my dog. What are you telling me here?
You're not vaccinating your dog?
or my cat or my sister. It doesn't matter. So I'm not vaccinating somebody. So what would your response to that be?
Well, feline leukemia is a very deadly disease. And if you care about bubbles, then if you love bubbles and you want bubbles to live a long time, I definitely think you should get the feline leukemia virus. So there.
Yeah, but there's mercury in those vaccines there. Come on.
Well, if you want to talk about, again, it's worth always talking about the methylmercury and the difference between methylmercury and ethylmercury that's in vaccines. However, it's in thimerosal, but that's actually the pharmaceutical companies wanting to stave off any type of unreasonable, even understanding or be misunderstood. They've actually pulled that as a preservative, which actually has now made our vaccines. The shelf life actually less, and actually have made them more fragile and actually less effective because of this. So if the anti-vax movement has worked at all, it's actually made vaccines less effective for the general population as a whole because there's no thimerosal in any vaccines anymore. There hasn't been in over 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah, it's funny because I looked it up and no, it was phased out a long time ago. It was phased out. I think it still exists in a few vaccines, but by and large, most of the vaccines, there's no thimerosal in there.
Mm-hmm. Michael, we can't help but compare because, we're so close to the border and we deal with Americans on a very regular basis. We can't help but compare the maybe the political climate, what's going on in the States right now as compared to maybe what happens north of the 49th, and in regards to health. Do you feel that the current political climate in the States is conducive to helping the situation in your field?
No, it quite worries me.
You said you live in Detroit, right? I mean, Detroit's got to be a prime example.
Yeah, I'm worried about how we treat each other and as a society. I like civilization. That's why I do what I do. I like it. I want it to continue, and I want it to become better for the weak and the powerless, because we can all at some point in our lives be weak and powerless for factors way beyond our control. And it breaks my heart when I see our current legislature in the state just really drag their feet, turn their backs, hem and haw, be poor stewards of their responsibilities and how they're supposed to handle things. I was mentioning before we went on air that, I had several children on my caseload with verified lead poisoning. And this is in Detroit. And this actually just made the news very quietly, too. It wasn't a big news story, but it was in the news just a few weeks ago, finally, after I've been seeing these children for about a year now. Mm-hmm. And just the lack of outrage about this, the lack of outrage of actually demanding that, dig up all these pipes and replace them. Yes, it will cost millions of dollars. So damn what? Yeah. It frustrates me to no end. They'd rather give a tax cut to rich people and businesses rather than make sure that our water is safe to drink. And that really makes me sick, and I'm quite angry about that.
Oh yeah, with your caseload, back in the dark ages when I was teaching, and I was in Texas, I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and since we just had the one type of autism that was discovered at that time, we had, I think the birth rate was like 1 in every 1,000, something like that. And so now, what is your caseload like with the autism spectrum? How prevalent is it in your school system?
I had 50 kids on my caseload.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And you see them how frequently?
I try to get to them at least 2 times a month. Some children I got to more than that because of the demands of the diagnosis, and I think because of the movability. I think there was some innate abilities there to be addressed. And so I as the clinician on hand, I sort of made a priorities list, and I have to go through those priorities and sort of see what I can do.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. So of the 50 on my caseload, about 30 would be autism. And
so are these children also in special education? Do they get regular speech? I'm from the old school when we were speech therapists. Now everybody is speech pathologists. But do they get regular speech and language help as well, so that they get a full, wraparound support?
Yes. And some were so severe they were in a self-contained classroom with no more than 7 and with a teacher and a parapro.
Yeah, we did that as well. We had actually a school that was devoted to special education. They don't do that anymore. But we had the small classes because some of the more severe kids would be triggered, whether it would be by diet or hyperactivity or something would trigger it. And the approved method at that time of calming a child was to wrap him in a sheet, and wrap them with a really large sheet, and sometimes 2, so that they couldn't hurt themselves, and supposedly that was calming. I don't know whether or not that's considered, the worst possible way to handle it, but it was effective. We hated to do it, but it seemed to...
Didn't they do that in ancient Egypt? They used to wrap you in a sheet and then push you in a coffin somewhere?
Yeah, no, but we did. The teachers did. So I don't know whether they still use that to help children who are really flailing out and it can't be calmed in any other way.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's deemed restrictive, and that's a big no-no to do that.
Yeah, well, that was the 70s when we were, it was,
I'm telling you,
what can we do that's helpful and not harmful?
Disco music was helpful, I'm telling you.
Yeah, we've come a long way in therapy, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Michael,
in some ways we have, in some ways we haven't. Again, the knowledge that we have on hand isn't being able to be deployed because of our failing municipalities, because of failing infrastructures, because of municipalities that won't, I every year would go and ask for a room that I could turn into a sensory room. And at first they would say, what's a sensory room and why do you need this? And so I was having to explain to the administration that would have rooms dedicated to autism in their school. And I have to explain to them why I would need that. And so you have that sort of failing to really understand what the needs are of these children as well.
Do you find that some of your parents are seeking alternate forms of therapies, like falling for a lot of the quackery, like the increased intake of vitamins,
yes.
or crawling therapy and things like that? Are people still feeling that there is some benefit in the quackery that's around?
Well, I mean, it's worth it. It might be a good time now to talk about the PANDAS syndrome. Have you heard of that?
No, I'm afraid I haven't.
Okay, PANDAS syndrome. Okay, it's pediatric autoimmune disorder associated with streptococcus infection. Now, basically, what it's children with very, very, very. They've got a very weak blood-brain barrier. And so food allergies can set off autistic-like, ADHD-like, OCD-like symptoms in these children. So you have these doctors, and one of my friends sent me a video online of this doctor, showing this child, and the child is exhibiting these types of symptoms, and then saying, okay, we put him on this diet, and we've cleared up the symptoms. Hey, look, we've cured autism. No, you haven't. You basically have a child with this other type of disorder called PANDAS. That child did not have autism, and so that's really muddying the waters, and that's causing a lot of, it's causing a lot of issues as well. And that's something I wanted to bring up because it can be easily misdiagnosed. Matter of fact, I've got a personal friend whose child has this, and I had to go to a couple of his IEPs at a couple different school systems because she kept moving him around to different school systems because they kept saying, no, he's autistic, or no, he's got ADHD, you have to put him on medication. And she's saying, no, he's not, it's his diet, it's this. And I'd have to walk into these meetings and go, it's not. And just, as a kind of a hired professional, although she didn't hire me, I just did it totally as a friend. So finally she got a diagnosis from a doctor, and he's being treated, and sometimes he's treated with antibiotics because he so easily gets infections that can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, goodness gracious. Michael, quick question. If I'll take my magic wand here for a second, and let's say I'm your fairy godfather here, and you said you see some of these kids maybe twice a month, and of course I know this is a very vague question.
A minimum of twice a month. Sometimes I see them once a week, so somewhere between once a week and twice a month. But yes, depending on the severity of the.
Depending on the severity, I know it's a vague question to ask, but if I could grant you a wish on the average child, how much time do you think you would need to spend with them to make it very, very effective? I know it's a spectrum question. I understand that, but let's go for an average here. I'm assuming it's more than twice a month.
It's more than twice a month. I think that if you look at the support team as a whole, whether it's speech, occupational therapy, and even physical therapy, and some of the other support staff. Even teachers, really. Again, how. Let me ask you this: what's for one teacher? How big should a classroom really be?
Yes.
12 kids, 18 kids, 30 kids, 45 kids. I mean, should we have a cap? Should we have a federal law saying you cannot have more than 18 kids in a class per one teacher? And then from there say, okay, per so many students, you need support staff consisting of speech, occupational therapy, blah, 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 blah. Across the board, again, we have an educational system that's over 100 years old, and dealing with these more extreme cases is very new to it, and so a lot of the municipalities are really slow to sort of realize the difference, the depths to which they need to support the support staff in actually implementing a lot of these therapies in the classroom and in the school system.
Yeah, I mean, going back in the dark ages again, we were lucky to have the classroom teacher and her aide, who really the aides generally never had any formal training whatsoever, but they were compassionate, and they really worked well with children, and they were good partners for the teachers. But we had them and the speech pathologist, and that was it. And there was barely enough money in the system, to support us, and they looked upon us as being, with a little skepticism. Well, do we really need 7 speech therapists in the system, or can we, when we cut 2 out and add another music teacher for the band?
Or another football team. That's important.
Yeah, so it's all, but if we had you back in those days, it would have been just phenomenal. We would have been the kids would have been able to have that additional help. And we could have formed a team and really done a lot of beneficial
Where the hell were you, Michael? Where have you been all this time?
Yeah, where were you, Michael, when I needed you?
This is all your fault.
I was at an Ozzy Osbourne concert, I think.
So do you get to talk to the team, to the other teachers on a fairly regular basis, so you can coordinate what you're doing and form goals that way, or is it individual?
Oh no, it's all a team effort.
Wonderful! Yeah,
every day meeting with people, every day talking to people. What's this working? A lot of what I saw myself as doing is really consulting for teachers to help them in the classroom at all times. What can we do here? Can we set up the classroom differently? And a lot of the teachers are really well trained and professionals themselves. So sometimes when, obviously, if you remember, some children with autism, especially if they got sensory problems, one can set off another one. And before you know it, you've got all these sort of chain reaction of behavior problems. So it was nice to be on hand when, if that happened, I could do a pull out and take one of the kids and go to the gym or go to a room and just sort of have quiet time and give the teacher and the rest of the classroom sort of a break and have both parties sort of be able to ratchet down their sort of their neurological activity a little bit there and calm down. So having someone on hand to do that is really, really important.
It is. It truly is, and it's great that you've got that team approach and can be able to have the room to be able to take that child into a quieter space until he or she
sometimes I didn't. I had to fight for those rooms.
Well, listen, back in the days when I was a speech pathologist in the public schools, they put us into closets. They put us in one of my schools, I never had a room. I was in the nurse's room with the sick kids and just a curtain pulled across, because that's the only place they would put us. So naturally you'd have all of these kids in speech therapy, and about half of them would be sick by because they're in the room with the nurses. So believe me, I understand fighting for space.
Oh yeah, I would have 4 to 5 schools I would go to a week, and out of that, maybe one school would have an enlightened administrator that would realize that I would need an office and would supply it. Some of the other schools might have just been too small, and even if they wanted to give me space, there just wasn't. So I basically set up space in like the auditorium and, pulled a table on the stage and just tried to do the best I could in a corner somewhere. But it's, sometimes the music room, and I would use, being a musician and also having a degree. I did a degree in music therapy as well back in the 90s. And so I would, use a piano and things like that to try to get the child basically to sit and do some fine motor work and some finger independence work on a piano, because the piano itself, it just gives the child so much visceral auditory feedback. It's a multi sort of sensory experience, and so hitting a nice big acoustic piano and on a key would give a child just a lot of joy. So I do things like that, and it just depends on what facilities I have in front of me at the time and the needs of the child.
So Michael, and I'll ask that question to you and Nancy as well. When you guys look at the future and you're looking at advances in science or the political climate, something like that, you guys generally positive about us finding a solution to autism, or you're pessimistic?
CRISPR-9, yeah. If that CRISPR-9 technology is what they say it is, then a lot of things will become a lot easier for a lot of people. But I would also like us to stop poisoning ourselves with petrochemicals. So that would be good as well. And so those things I think would, but with someone like Trump in office, I don't see that as happening anytime soon.
The petroleum things are going to happen for a while. You might start with stop eating Twinkies. You might get people to do that.
I'm mixed. I have a niece who just got her PhD in working with fruit flies with Fragile X, and there are quite a number of researchers who are looking into that, and her research was sort of a game changer in what happened with her tests and so forth. And so if that kind of research continues, and Michael knows too, it'll eventually lead to what causes autism, and then we've got to get the money together to be able to have the right schools, the right settings, the right professional people, to do that. But just for fun, I'll read you the last paragraph of my thesis, which has not seen the light of day till today. And
now Nancy just unscrolled the papyrus.
But this is in a way addressing the question of the future, and this is going back to 1972 to look at the future, and rather than 2018. It says, the speech and language behavior of the autistic child may be analogous to the definition of the Russian Kremlin. It is a riddle within a puzzle within an enigma. One can only hope that additional diligent research and study will eventually untangle the complex interacting factors, revealing clearly the true nature of the behavior. And I think that probably is a little bit true today, but we're so much farther ahead.
Yeah, well, we've unraveled the Kremlin, and we've done that much.
That's right. But I think, as each generation contributed what they could with what they had to work with. Now the technology and the knowledge and the DNA and Fragile X it has to, given the time and the effort and the funding, it has to produce much better results in the last 40 years. It just has to. Don't you think, Michael?
Yes. Yeah. And generally, I'm positive the way the science is going. Still, society as a whole, I'm still worried about, the way we're treating teachers right now in our educational system just seems to be very, very precarious.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me. I mean, we've turned our backs on teachers. We've turned our backs on education, at least here in the States. And I'm quite upset about that. So
you just jump across the river to Windsor,
Yeah, I love
you with open arms.
Yeah, no, it is, because there are so many people like yourself who reach a burnout, and they say, I've done everything I can, and I don't get the support. I don't get the money to feed my own children. I can't take care of my family. I'm going to have to take a second job or a third job. And as much as those people are reluctant to leave these kids who need them, the choices are, I have to take care of myself before I can be any good to anyone else. Exactly. And so they leave, and it's such a loss. Every teacher that leaves the profession is a profound loss.
I even feel cynically that even some of the I think maybe this is just my own sort of feeling and speculation here, so forgive my emotional statement, but I even feel cynically when the powers that be bankrupted Detroit and bankrupted the school system, that they really were counting on appealing to the teachers and the support staff to kind of stay on and put up with being treated poorly by saying, do it for the children. Yeah. Rather than, turning to some billionaires and saying, nope, you're going to have to pay your property taxes. Nope, you're going to have to pay your bills, man.
Exactly.
And so that's what frustrates me. I think that current societal value of worshiping the rich and bullying the people beneath you kind of makes me sick. And, that's one of the reasons why I'm happy to do things like this. It's for that sort of social awareness. of what are the tenets of society, what are the tenets of civilization, and education is a huge pillar. And we're not on a good road right now with it, and amongst other things.
Yeah, come on, midterms. Let's hope.
Yeah, we have to.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and explaining this to our audience. I sure hope the people have taken heed of your warning. But in the meantime, the mic is all yours, my friend. If you want to plug yourself, be shameless. Go right ahead. If people want to find out more about you, where can they reach you?
Facebook, Michael Moore.
There we go.
That's easy. I tell you, I wish we were sitting someplace at the same table, because I would reach over and give you such a hug.
Oh, it's really sweet.
All of your, you just knit together in one big piece. You'd be so hugged, so strong.
Nancy's got a kung fu grip too. You can't get out of that.
Because I admire you so much. You bring so much to the profession, and you help these children. More than anyone can say or realize. And every step that they take makes their future a little bit brighter, and that's just so worthwhile, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is. It really, really is.
Michael, before I let you go, I have to get you to say, hi, I'm Michael Moore, and I took a left at the Valley.
Hi, I'm Michael Moore, and I took a left at the Valley.
And that was Michael Moore, not the filmmaker.
Oh.
With a look at children and autism.
What a great
That was a great interview.
It was very nostalgic for me, obviously.
Oh yeah, of course.
He is a hero.
Yeah,
doing the work he's doing.
He does a lot of work, and I kind of feel bad for him and a lot of people like him that are trying so hard for the children and are not given the proper resources.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
They're not supported, and when you think this is going to come and bite us in the ass in the future, because it's the children are the future. And you know what? You might not want to invest in children's education now, but when you're on your deathbed and the doctor presiding over you is one of those kids, you'll want the best.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford to help these children now, you really cannot afford not to.
Yeah, I was inspired by my granddaughter. Just finished her first year in occupational therapy, and I hope when she hears this, and she will, I'm really hoping that she will have an inspiration in Michael Moore and realize that things may not always be the best in terms of your professional setting, but with dedication and information and a lot of compassion, you can do a lot of good work with these kids, and he really doesn't let anything stop him, and that's the kind of people we need working with kids like, the children that he described. He's great.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
He's great. So I have a little story.
By all means.
That I sort of shared with Michael a little bit when we were off air, and then when I thought about it, I thought that people listening might think it's a good. I love a good story.
Me too.
So going back to when I was a speech pathologist, and we called ourselves speech therapists. Then back then in the 70s, we had children that were not part of the autism spectrum, but they were what we called infantile autism, as you know, with the interview. Mm-hmm. And so I had several children who were autistic on my caseload, and like typical autistic children, several of them were nonverbal, and I had to really try to think, how could I engage these kids who had language learning difficulties as well as a very little social interaction with the people who were around them. And during that time, this was in the 1970s, early 1970s, it was during the time that there was research going on with primates as to whether or not primates, apes and chimpanzees, could learn sign language and whether they could communicate, because they are our relatives. And there were a lot of people who thought, yes, it was possible, and then we could communicate with them, and they would be able to be seen as the sentient beings that they are, and it would sort of tie us in, to the evolutionary timeline and so forth. So at that time, the most famous chimpanzee was named Washoe. and she was at the University of Oklahoma, and she had a remarkable vocabulary. I think the time that I first found out about her, there was almost 150 words, and the training that she was getting was fabulous. And I thought...
It's like more than Donald Trump.
Yeah, a little bit more. And I thought, there's one thing that autistic kids do that might be an opening toward helping them learn language and maybe some social interaction. And I thought sign language might work because autistic children tend to use their hands and their fingers in waving motions that are self-satisfying to them. It helps them orient their bodies in the world, and they just really enjoy that kind of, whether they enjoy it or not, but it's something very typical. And I thought, autistic children, primates, American Sign Language. Is that going to work or isn't it going to work? And so I started to take a couple of the autistic kids and work not with pictures, but with balls, with real life objects and myself, and trying to see if I could get them through a little operant conditioning to identify objects and use sign language. And I didn't exactly have the kind of success that I thought, but it took a lot of patience and it took a lot of work. And I thought, no, this there's promise here. This really, if someone else smarter than I am that could refine this to a method, I think it could work. So I stopped teaching, but I always remained really interested in Washoe and in that kind of primate behavior and how they were doing it and how many were learning sign language, because eventually what they wanted to do is they wanted to have Washoe and Coco, who was an ape, teach their fellow primates how to sign, which would show that they thought it was a way to communicate, within themselves. So fast forward to the early 2001, 2003. I was in Texas when I was teaching, but when I was up here and moved up here in 1999, I was on a forum that had to do with cat cancer. Totally unrelated. But one of the women on there and I started to email back and forth, and I told her in an email about how I had related to Washoe and how inspirational she was, because we were talking about how animals can change your life. And she sent me back an email that almost threw me off the chair, because she said, it's really funny that you mentioned that, because I'm at Central Washington University and that's where Washoe moved. This is 4 hours from where we are up here. And I thought, I can't believe this, that this chimpanzee being my hero since 1970 was 4 hours from me. So my husband and I packed up and went to Central Washington University to meet Washoe, and I was like, this is like a movie star. It's like somebody wonderful, because I had admired so much what she had accomplished and the things that she had gone through. So we got there. And before they let you see the primates, you have to go through a school on how to act like a primate, so that when they see you in their enclosure, they're not afraid of you. They think of you as one of their tribe. Or
I'm a natural at that.
Yeah. So we had to hunch over and we had to walk, in a swaying way. And finally, I'm all excited, and they get us, to walk in there. And the primates were behind this glass wall, and we were stuck in this little alleyway place. But it was beautiful. I mean, it was lush. They had everything in the world. They had trees, they had places to climb, they had clothes to put on, they had magazines to read.
401ks.
Yeah, 401ks. It was wonderful. They got the keys to the car, on the weekends to go up.
Luxury monkeys.
There she was. There were 3 primates in there, and there she was, but she was way over, sitting up on on a little platform, and I thought, oh, this is the closest. Well, it was closer than I'd gotten in 1972, but there she was, and I thought, oh, if she would just come to the window and I could, just feel that presence. And slowly she just kind of decided, there were about 8 or 9 of us, and she decided she was going to come over to the glass, and I'm going, be still, my heart. Now, it's a short little break. I like different shoes. I like really cute, colorful shoes. And that day, for no reason whatsoever, I decided to put on these little red tennis shoes. And they were sort of like bowling shoes, but they were just bright red, cutest little shoes you ever saw in your life. And here comes Washoe, and she comes closer, and pretty soon she's right there. I mean, it was just the glass that separated it, and my heart is thumping. And she comes over, and she looks down, and she does this with her hands. Nice shoes. And I thought, I can't believe after all of these years. I nearly cried. I was so excited that here my little hero was, and came over to the glass, looked at my shoes, and signed, nice shoes.
And you replied, goes with my purse.
Yeah. I wish I had I wish I had a purse of the presence of mind to do that. But anyway, that's my Washoe.
Oh, that's a cute story.
I love that story.
See, now I'm gonna have to change the title of the show to A Close Encounter with a Chimp.
Close encounter. But if you can, I mean, it's hard to explain the thrill, and the closeness that I felt with her in just that moment. And obviously, she liked my shoes.
That's a fantastic story, Nancy. It's a fantastic story. Oh, well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us today on this close encounter of the chip kind. You can follow us at leftatthevalley.com. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter at LATV Podcast. Send us an email at leftatthevalley@outlook.com. Give us a 5-star review. That would really help other people find the show. It helps us too. Send your complaints to Nancy on the 3rd floor.
Just don't expect to keep your head.
In sign language. And maybe some pictures of cute shoes as well.
Yeah.
And puppies.
And puppies.
Dressed up as Harry Potter.
Okay, send that to Christina on the 2nd floor.
What about that little piggy in the rain jacket?
Oh, the piggy in the rain jacket is solid.
We just went to a complete tangent there. Thank you. Trying to keep the show on the road here. All right, next week, who's back? Our old friend Del Rey. Ooh, we'll be talking to Del Rey about why we cheat. And in June, his rawness on Raw.
Oh, so
excited to finally be here.
On the 9th, we'll be talking to a couple of podcasters to have a podcast called Odd Atheist Friends. That's going to be interesting. They're kind of like the comedy duo of podcasting. And on the 16th, we'll be talking to Thomas Westbrook of the Holy Kool-Aid podcast.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's actually more of a YouTube channel.
Wow.
And on the 23rd, we'll be talking to the sultry voice of Seth Andrews and 10 years in atheism.
Oh, a mix of new people and our favorite older people.
Yeah, exactly.
Our favorite guests. I shouldn't call them older people, especially me.
Didn't he just turn 50 this year?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Thank you so much, guys, for being in with us today. Anything else we need to say before we go?
No.
All right, perfect.
I already did my Harry Potter joke. It was the puppies dressed up as Harry Potter. I don't need to say it now.
All right. Until next time.
Told and believe in the God assigned by your parents. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. Atheist. I'm an atheist. 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 I'm an atheist. Now let me take a sec, don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that thousands of children are raped by priests, and since they're holy men of God, they get away scot-free, and the Pope does his very best to keep it on the hush, don't wanna affect business he loves money too much. We know that they love the kids, but how the fuck can we protect them while they planning to molest them? We teaching them to respect them.
Fuck that.
The system is broke down, working backwards, and the only action or tactic I plan to practice now is to attack them. The parties of God's hands are bloodstained, millions of murders by believers, and they're all in God's name. And let me take a sec, don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that many atheists are told to be quiet. You're not alone, speak your mind, time to let it be known. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer.